We are your home theater and AV questions answered. This is AVRant. Want your home theater or AV question answered by Tom and Rob? Send it to question@avrant.com. Welcome to another edition of AVRant. I'm Tom Andry, and I'm here with
Rob H. This is AVRant. It's your home theater and AV questions answered. And welcome to episode 600. We're definitely not doing anything special, but it is episode 600.
I was going to say, I wonder if Ash hooked us up with any art.
Not that I received. So
I didn't get it.
Maybe he sent it to Austin, whom we have not heard from in... Well, I haven't heard from him in about a month now since the last time, I guess it was. And yeah.
I haven't heard from him at all. I think he's... I hope he's... I mean, I guess he's probably not listening to the podcast anymore either. But
yeah.
If he is listening to the podcast, I will tell you, Austin, believe me, I harbor no ill will about any of this stuff that happens. So
I really don't care about the video. I want to know.
I do.
I want to know that SVS got their stuff back. That I
want the
confirmed.
video, but I think it'll happen one day. It'll be like 2020, and this video come out, and it'll be like wins Sundance or something.
And by then there'll be like some new Harman research that's like, oh, actually, 2 subwoofers is a really bad idea. No, I don't think that's going to happen, but you never know. Things do change.
Yeah. All right. So this is AVRant, the podcast that answers your home theater and AV questions. To get your questions answered, all you have to do is to ask. You ask by emailing us at question@avrant.com. You go to www.avrant.com. Click on anything and leave a comment. Facebook.com/AVRant podcast, YouTube.com/AVRant. You can contact us directly. Rob at AVRant.com, at First Reflect is his Twitter. I'm Tom at AVRant.com, at AVRant_Tom. So, yeah, that's that.
Yeah.
Start off, of course, by thanking our listeners of the week. To become a listener of the week, all you have to do is support the podcast in some way. One of the ways you can do that is going to www.avrant.com and clicking on the Buy Us a Cup of Coffee link. That will take you to a PayPal donation site where they will take your PayPal information or your credit card and to whatever monies you give and give some of it to us. So we want to thank Andrew for doing that this week. Thank you very much, Andrew. Those monies will go into our coffers to help pay for our hosting fees and other such sundries.
Andrew, thank you very much for the donation.
We also want to thank our 61 patrons over at patreon.com. Patreon is a service that will allow you to support your internet, I guess, artists. Are we artists? Content creators.
Yeah.
Let's go with that.
We create
I feel
content.
artist is a bit. Yep. Yeah.
AVRant rises to the level of art.
Art with an F, maybe. So, the Patreon will take a monthly subscription and then give most of the money to us and some of it to themselves. So Thank you to our 61 patrons.
Yeah, that's patreon.com/AVRant podcast if you'd like to sign up. And thank you very much to our 61 patrons.
Last week, our listener Chris finally gave away his Inseon hub that he was looking to help support the podcast by drumming up some support for that. So that went out to Joshua. I think it's actually, by the time you listen to this podcast, Joshua should have it in hand.
Yeah, hopefully.
Unless he lives I don't know. Maybe he sent it by snail, like really super snail, like actual snails, snail mail. But it should be there by then. So congratulations, Joshua, and thank you to Chris. And Chris says that he is, I guess he's been working like as a, what does this mean? A Windows Insider.
Okay, so yeah, they have an Insider program, which means you get early builds of any new updates or firmware.
Ooh, you get to break all your Windows peripherals on a weekly basis.
In fact, you try to, because that's the whole point, is to see if anything breaks before they release it as the full public release.
You should be a Windows Insider. You break stuff all the time.
I get it on the public release, and it breaks my Microsoft-branded webcam. Of all the webcams in the world, it's the Microsoft-branded ones that always break on the full public release. Yeah. Every time.
So anyways, Chris says that he is always willing to help when it comes to Windows and Xbox stuff. So if you have any questions that you can't answer, and if we have any questions we don't know the answer to, we're going to hit him up. So he's going to be our Windows guy. So we're going to have to start calling him Windows Chris.
Yeah, he said it was he'd fine with sharing his Twitter handle. That's fine to hit him up on Twitter. So that's at Chris Petrin. That's Chris with a K-R-I-S, Petrin with a P-E-T-R-I-N. So Chris
Not
Petrin.
with. It is. It's not with. There's nothing else.
It's a figure of speech. At Chris Petrin if you'd like to talk about Insteon, Xbox, and Windows-related things. There you go. Also, to Joshua, who did win the Insteon Hub, he just wanted to give you a tip. Search eBay if you're looking for inexpensive Insteon items, because lots of people selling them, or smarthome.com is the official site to buy Insteon-branded products.
There you go. So the family, my two older boys were away for all of last week.
Okay.
They were in, they were at Boy Scout camp up in Georgia. So they were gone for a week, which was great. But now they came back on Saturday, and my wife was like, "Let's do something as a family." Okay. So we watched Jurassic Park. I'm like, I got Jurassic Park. It's got new sound. It's awesome.
The first Jurassic Park again?
The first one, yes. Okay. I watched that one again. Okay. And it was as awesome.
Yes.
As the first
that
time.
movie holds up, man. You can watch that movie multiple times.
Well, it's the sound that I'm talking about. The upgraded sound, the DTSX sound is amazing. I still stand by that as being a great demo disc.
I believe you.
It's fantastic. I thought you were going to get it. Didn't you get it?
Yeah, but it's my parents' place. I gave it to them.
Oh.
It's theirs.
I thought you... Okay, whatever. So there's that. And I've also been watching Nailed It on Netflix.
Yep.
I don't know if you guys have seen that. Nailed It is a Netflix cooking show where people try to recreate cookies and cakes that are, highly stylized, and they don't know what they're doing, and it's hilarious. My kids love it. So if you're looking for something to watch with your kids, I think there's only 2 seasons, and only like maybe a dozen episodes totals, but something to watch. All right, let's get into the news here. The Xbox One X and S will be getting Dolby Vision support in the coming weeks, quote unquote. There's supposed to be a new firmware update that will add Dolby Vision support for streaming services, and then in the fall, October-ish, there's supposed to be another update to add Dolby Vision support for Ultra HD Blu-ray disc playback. Wait, what? So it's Dolby Vision just for games?
No, there's been no mention of games yet.
So what is it's going to support for stream? Okay, so first streaming services are going to get it, and then it's going to be, why wouldn't you do the discs first? That doesn't make a lick of sense.
They probably forgot, and then they're like, oh, wait, we should probably apply it to that app too. Whoops.
You mean people actually put things in the cup holder?
Yeah.
The old joke, it's a cup holder.
Right. The disc tray that comes out.
The tray that comes out. Mm-hmm. No.
Netflix is the very first thing. That's the thing that for sure works. Of course, they understand, but yeah.
Some Xbox insiders are already testing the new capabilities. I'm guessing Chris is one of them. Yeah. And Netflix and Vudu seem to be working just fine so far. Yeah. So, yay.
Well, hey, that's good. If people are testing it already, the Xbox insiders are testing it already, then that is coming. That's not going to be vaporware. The physical media, the Ultra HD Blu-rays, I don't know, nobody's testing that yet. We'll see if that actually comes out in October, but that's the plan. Yeah,
so I am not drinking water right now. I am making a bad life choice because I have felt absolutely terrible all day. It's not... Okay, I take it back. I felt absolutely terrible since 3 p.m. Like this morning I woke up, I was working on the new business stuff, like marketing stuff and all this other stuff. And then we started putting together a new home office. Like we have one big desk that's way too big, and we're getting rid of that and putting a double desk. So my wife has a desk and I have a desk, and it's almost half the size. Like one was, the new one is like, and because I lived in Australia, I have tape measures that are in feet and some that are in centimeters and this in meters. So this one, the one I grabbed was in centimeters. So it was, the one's like 500. The new one's like 500 centimeters, like half a meter, and the old one was almost a full meter. It was like 950 something. It was a deep desk. So my kids and I have been putting that together all day. And right after I finished that, I was like, I gotta take a nap. I feel terrible, and I have not been able to take a nap. So this, well, I would love it to have an alcoholic beverage in it. It is just Pepsi.
Oh, okay.
Pepsi Max, which apparently has like the most caffeine that you can possibly have in a drink,
and not diet, so it's got the sugar as well.
Oh, Pepsi Max is diet, 0 calories.
Oh, it's 0? Okay.
Yeah, it's 0 calories.
Sugar. What good is that?
The fake sugar.
Sugar would
the
help
stuff that's probably giving me cancer right now. Anyways, so I'm doing that so I can stay awake for this podcast, and then I won't be able to sleep tonight, and then the cycle will repeat. Yeah. All right. So here, in the other news here, LG Display received their approval from China to proceed with building their new OLED production facility in that country. South Korea had already approved LG's petition to allow them to build the facility outside of South Korea back in December of 2017. So it's been a hot minute. The new Chinese plant will produce the same substrate panel sizes as LG's current plants in South Korea. And when it reaches full capacity in late 2019, they'll be producing more substrates from that one plant in China than they are currently able to produce from all of their South Korean plants combined as of today, which is like 90,000 per month just in China versus 70,000 per month today.
Yeah.
So, and just so that South Korea doesn't feel left behind, LG is building a new facility that will be able to manufacture larger substrates than even their current plants, large enough substrates that an 88-inch OLED TV might very well be a reality. So, yeah. There's that. Yeah. I don't know why. I literally don't know why this news is in here because I don't care.
Because it means that prices are going to go down on OLEDs. This is inevitable. Now that they can more than double their current production and add a new facility that'll make.
But we're in a trade war, so who knows?
Well, right.
The last cake we watched them build on Nailed It was a Trump cake. It was a cake of Trump. It was like it was
of him,
bust.
of his face,
a bust. Yeah, a bust of him. And these cakes. I mean, first of all, the Trump cake, the one they were building from, looked pretty good, right? I mean, it looked pretty much like Trump, but the ones they made were horror shows. I mean, my kids were like, "It's zombie Trump." I'm like, "It is zombie Trump." You are absolutely correct, sir. You get the blue medal. All right. Andrew on Facebook heard us discussing Rob W's issue where he had to run an HDMI cable that was labeled 18 gigabits per second inside his wall, but it didn't work. Meanwhile, running an HDMI cable outside the wall worked for him, so we concluded that it was the fault of the first cable and he needed to replace it. Andrew had a similar problem, but it turned out that the issue was actually his HDMI wall plates. Some wall plates won't pass through the full bandwidth, but the ones that are fully high-speed compliant will. So that saved him having to rerun the whole cable through the walls, just a wall plate swap instead, which might be all Rob W needs too. That is an excellent suggestion, and yes. I did not think of that.
I did not, and we're not 100% sure that Rob W is even using wall plates. Not everybody does, yeah, but if he is, it's certainly worth checking because that would be a lot less hassle than, so Rob W also had the conduit. He followed our, pleas to always run conduit, but then he had 90-degree turns, and the big old ends of the cable couldn't get through those 90-degree turns. That was the problem. You could get it into the conduit, but then you couldn't get it around the bends. They were too tight. So big no good, but wall plates, maybe it's just the wall plates. A little late now. He already kind of ran them, put the channel covers over them, and painted them on the outside of the wall. But for anyone else, check your wall plates. Good advice.
Richard on Facebook, he has a correction for us. The NAD T 758V. Can we stop talking about NAD?
Not when when people are fans of NAD, they are not pleased if anything is not 100% correct.
I don't care. Okay, listen. You can love them. Love them. All right? Love them. Enjoy them. They're the best thing ever. Now, fast forward for the next 35 seconds because they're just not as good. Okay, I don't care what you say, don't care how you defend it, they're just not as good. They're not. Just feature-wise, they don't have as many features, they're not as good. They're not.
Well, this is why we're correcting, though, because here it comes.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's fine. No matter what, it still only has 3 HDMI inputs. You can't explain that away. That is.
I guess since they have the whole modular construction thing, maybe one day they will swap out the HDMI board to add more. Why they began with only 3 in the first place is odd, but hey, maybe they will.
Okay. All right, whatever. Okay. Yeah. All right. So NAD T5 whatever V3 does have Dolby Vision pass through now. It was added via firmware update 3 months ago. It is still waiting on DTS:X firmware update though. NAD says it's coming in Q4 of some year. Yeah. So $1,300, $1,400. We paid the extra $100 to get Direct Live Full instead of Direct Live LE
limited edition.
Limited editions, not the good limited, the bad.
Not the
limited.
good kind of limited.
The
It is the
car
literal
limited
type
edition.
of limited.
Yeah, like we took some stuff out. All the features once DTSX arrives, and the only downside for some people will be having 3 HDMI inputs and 1 HDMI output, and the fact that it's a lot more expensive than other receivers.
Well, I mean, so $1,300. So the whole point was, here is a unit you can buy that is expandable to 7.2.4.
Yes.
That we have confirmed. It will have both Atmos and DTSX once DTSX firmware update has been released. And it does pass through Dolby Vision and HDR10. So it basically has all the features with Dirac that comes into it, which means that it is the least expensive way that you can have a 7.2.4 setup with Dirac correction. There's no less expensive way to get that. If Dirac is the thing that you want, this is the least expensive option to get to that. So there you go. That's good to know. Somebody really wants that. And they're okay with 3 HDMI inputs. But hey, I mean, look, an external HDMI switch is not terribly expensive. You can add 5 more ports pretty easily.
Oh my God, just such a hassle, though. Like, for real. It ends up being such a hassle. It does. Inevitably, you have 2 devices that'll start fighting, and then, you'll have lip sync issues on one, but not the other, and
Yep. It's not going to stop me from recommending Denon AVRant at $800, though. Because it's still a significant amount, and I do not consider... So there are the people who are like, Dirac is a game changer, and I'm like, it's auto EQ, it's the cherry on top. If your room is really good, it barely touches the signal, just like Odyssey barely touches the signal if your room is really good. So that's still my opinion of what's going on there. I do agree that Dirac is really good. I have absolutely nothing against it.
Dirac's fine.
I wish it had something akin to dynamic EQ, but there you go.
Yeah, so while we're talking about things that we love and the other things that we don't love, that Sony Ultra HD Blu-ray player has got lip sync issues, dude. I swear. It just does. Like, I was watching Jurassic Park and the lip sync was off. And of course, I'm the only one in the room that notices it because it's only a little bit off, but it's a little bit off. And it was driving me nuts. So, because the joys of watching a movie at home, press pause, went to the bathroom, came back, press play, lip sync, it was back to being...
I wonder if you tried using... It has a second HDMI output that's audio only, right? I wonder if that would do anything. Maybe.
Yeah, this is the problem, though, because the lip sync is off, like the YouTube is off, like the
is it
Ultra
well,
HD...
you just said for Jurassic Park, so it is off for the discs too, then, eh?
It just is the first time it's done that, but once I press pause and press play, it was fine, so... I don't know, man. I just want there to be... I want Oppo to come back.
Yeah, no kidding.
I just want Oppo. Can I just have Oppo?
And everybody else. I don't know why they left.
Oppo. All right, let's get to these questions here. Infinite Gary. Gary was watching a live concert DVD. The audio track was listed as Dolby Digital Stereo. What is that? Would it be more compressed or less compressed than the CD? Dolby Digital Stereo. He's watching a live concert DVD.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's
a
just...
DVD. The soundtrack was Dolby Digital Stereo.
Okay. I mean, it's just dope. Why? You mean it's opposed to PCM? Oh, he's asking, would it be higher quality or lower quality than CD?
Yeah, right. Yeah. Lower.
I mean,
Dolby Digital...
Why did they even compress it in the first place? It's not like they don't have the room on there. That's what I don't understand.
Well, yeah, that is a little weird, but so Dolby Digital is just a codec, right? Codec is coder decoder. It's a way of encoding information.
Wasn't MA or Dolby Digital, whatever, True HD.
No, because this was a DVD. So it's just regular old Dolby Digital. So we're used to seeing Dolby Digital 5.1. That's why he's like, what is Dolby Digital Stereo? But
it's just 2 channels.
Dolby Digital is just a codec. So there's lots of different codec. MP3 is a codec. AAC is a codec. DTS is a codec. Dolby Digital is a codec. So they're saying Dolby Digital Stereo to let you know we're using Dolby Digital encoding. This is how we're encoding the signal. In order to listen to this, you will have to have a Dolby Digital decoder. You're not going to be able to listen to it if you don't have Dolby Digital decoding. But they're saying stereo, it's only 2 channels. They could have listed it as Dolby Digital 2.0 instead of 5.1. They could have said this is 2.0. They just put stereo.
It just allows you to use a surround sound decoder to upmix it to other channels.
Sure.
Rather than giving you a 5.1 and only putting sound in the left and right channels, which is what an Xbox does to you. This will allow you to actually...
That's right, because the original signal tells the decoder there are only 2 channels here.
Now you can do with it as you will.
That's right. But Dolby Digital is a lossy compression codec. What goes in is not exactly the same as what comes out. Some information is lost, very similar to MP3. In fact, the compression rate of Dolby Digital is very similar to MP3. So the lossiness of Dolby Digital is very similar to MP3. It is more compressed than CD, and it is lossy. CDs are lossless, and they are not data compressed. They are just pure PCM audio sitting on the disc. They haven't been data compressed or lossy compressed in any way.
Now, will you be able to hear the difference between the lossy and between the Dolby Digital version and the original version? I don't know. There's no way of really knowing.
And it depends on the data rate that was used too. Dolby Digital is variable. It can be a high data rate. It can be a low data rate. Hopefully, with only 2 channels to encode, they used a high data rate. You would think it would be
pretty high. Yeah, you would think. Yeah. All right, so when he tried listening to that same concert DVD in a 7.1.4 Atmos room, he cycled through all the listening modes and wound up preferring just the 2.1. He tried the same DVD again in his main theater, and while he enjoyed the presentation in Anthem Logic 7.1 music mode, that's very specific, his favorite listening mode ended up being just straight 2-channel with his Dynaudio towers running full range, no subwoofers even. Do we ever try listening to our content in different listening modes? And if so, have we noticed a preference depending on the content? So yeah, I do this occasionally, especially when I'm testing out speakers and other things, or listening to content, a specific disc. I will switch between different codecs. What I find is the switching, you almost always prefer what you just heard versus what you're hearing now. So there's a psychological aspect to it.
Oh,
that
there
you have
is,
to kind of get
sure.
yourself. You got to get over. So you have to like listen to it for a while in one, and then switch and listen to it a while in the other one before you can really. Because when you first switch, you're like, it's weird. I don't like it because it just sounds different. Especially if you go from a 2-channel to a multi-channel, it always sounds like it gets quieter up front,
right?
And it sounds more diffuse and not quite as coherent of an image. Which is exactly what it's supposed to do. So, give it a break. But if you listen to that for a while, you might end up preferring that because you get a more enveloping experience. I don't necessarily think there's any right way to do it.
No, there's no right or wrong to this. Definitely.
Gene at Audioholics used to always review this 2-channel stuff, and he would use Dolby, whatever it was. The
ProLogic back in the day, and
it was probably ProLogic that he used to take his 2-channel stuff. So that he loved it. That's all he did to review, no matter what album it was. He used that. I'm like, okay, that's weird. You should listen to it in 2-channel.
I've certainly cycled through. I mean, that's how I discovered that I liked DTS Neo X, which don't really have anymore, but I discovered that I like that, but specifically in its game mode. Even for listening to music, I prefer it in its game mode because game mode makes it the most discreet from speaker to speaker instead of sort of smushing them together sometimes, or blending them. So yeah, I've definitely done the experiment, but I don't tend to do it a lot now on music. When the few times that I do in my theater listen to music, I will definitely try just the 2-channel, and I will try, in my case now, Neural X, so at least my front wide speakers get some action. Still in the game mode, but I don't really venture too much outside of that. I might try Dolby Surround Up Mixer because that does sound quite nice sometimes. But yeah, there's no right or wrong. I mean, if you're just like, I preferred it in straight 2-channel, I'm like, there you go. That's great. And it might not be the case for every concert. It might be the case for that concert because every concert disc is going to be mixed and mastered differently as well. So
I think the concert discs are a little bit easier for the surround, the decoders to kind of pick out, like, oh yeah, this is definitely audience noise, so that goes behind you.
There's lots of phase information in any concert. Well, I can't say any, but usually, the majority of the time, there's lots of phase information for those up mixers to work with. So yeah, if you've got the time and the inclination, by all means, and whatever you happen upon, and it might be different on the next disc, there's no right or wrong with this at all.
So he thought the 2-channel modes for his concert DVD sounded purer and more open versus the upmixing modes. What would explain this? I just described that exact experience, which is it's taking information that's supposed to be just in 2 channels and then spreading it around. So yes, it's going to sound different. It's going to sound more diffuse. It's going to sound more less focused. It's going to sound sometimes quieter. And I think that's exactly, this is what you're experiencing. When you take what was in one channel and now is in many channels, you're going to find that some of the information that was in that front channel is now coming from a different speaker in a different in a different orientation towards your ear, it's going to make it sound different.
Yeah, you can also have those audio illusions, sometimes intentional audio illusions, that were purposefully mixed in a 2-channel mix. The people who sat down and made this recording did so on a 2-channel system, and they might have used an audio illusion to create the sense that something is coming from behind you, even though it's originating from only 2 speakers in front of you or from overhead or whatever. And sometimes the up mixer nails that, but sometimes it doesn't. And occasionally you have a sound coming from behind you that wasn't really supposed to, or it comes from behind you, but it's slightly out of phase, slightly out of time.
I've actually heard
all kinds of things,
of people like getting a specific disc and with a specific decoder or whatever one it was, and I can't remember what it was. They're like, all the vocals come out from behind you now. So I listen to this one a 2-channel.
It was mixed with reverse polarity, but which would be fine playing out of only 2 speakers. You wouldn't notice that.
Right. Yeah. So Gary got his new rug and his Acoustimac absorption panels for his exercise room. He got one large 4x4 4-foot panel that he rests on a dresser on the back wall behind him. So I don't know if you're showing a picture of this.
I am, yes.
That's it. And that's
a big old panel.
It certainly looks like it's a falling hazard, but it'll be light, so it won't hurt you too much. But for the second panel, he cares about the look, so he got a printed art panel and mounted it on his right side wall in a position that he likes aesthetically, and it has like a biplane on it or some sort of fighter plane on it, and it looks real nice.
I think so. So that is so. Again, just to let people know who are like, I can't get absorption panels into my room because my significant other or I think they look too ugly. Yeah. This is a piece of artwork. If you want a nice frame, you can put a nice frame around that, and nobody's going to know that that's an absorption panel. Yeah. Right? Looks good.
Yeah. So what are our opinions on the placement? The bottom edge of the panel lines up more or less with the midpoint of the woofer on the speaker, and some of the speaker extends below the panel. He didn't want to mount the panel any lower, though, because of looks. And in terms of the front to back placement of the panel, does it look like it would be absorbing the first reflection when he's pedaling his stationary bike?
That's what this room is for. So that's
no. I was just like, why did him pedaling have anything to do with it? It's just him where he's sitting.
That's his
or is this one of those just having panels anywhere in the room situations? It's very hard. It looks like it will absorb the first reflection to me.
Yeah, I think it'd be towards sort of I guess the part of the panel that is closest to you, I guess, would be casting the first reflection.
It's hard to see. I mean, that speaker's awfully close to that wall.
It is. But honestly,
it depends on how much you have it towed in, too. It's hard to tell that.
Yeah, I mean, what concerns me more, though, is what's happening on the left side of your room. Because so this is the photo before he had put the panels up. It sure looks like there's a door just like symmetrically to the other side of where the back of his seat is from his exercise bike there. So this looks like a fairly narrow room. I don't think the left side of this room is wide open, or I think we don't have a photo of the left side of the room, but I don't believe that it's wide open. So if you now have this panel on your right side wall, ideally you would have a panel on your left side wall to make it symmetrical.
Get a helicopter, bounce
there
out
you
the
go.
window. Or a boat.
Although he might have furniture that is preventing him from putting something there. It's entirely possible. And in fact, quite likely.
Yeah. So now that he has his exercise room all set up, and he's been spending a lot of time listening to his self-powered Dynaudio 20XD speakers, he found that when he went back into a different room where he has Revell Performance speakers with a Paradigm sub and listened to the same CDs, he thinks it sounds a bit edgy now. Even though he was always pleased with the sound before. Should he just stop doing these critical listening comparisons? Or have we had similar experiences where a new setup makes you go back and reevaluate your older setup? That's just going to happen, man. Just let it go. Just let it go. This is why, the same thing people are like, I've got these new headphones and now my home theater sucks.
Right.
Sorry. I'm sorry. Don't stop. I sometimes feel the same way, but you know what? Eventually what happens is you go into your other room, and after 5 seconds of sitting there listening to it, you're like, it sounds all right.
Yeah. It really tends to be the case that whatever you are most used to right now is, as long as you like what you're used to right now, you tend to prefer it until you listen to something else long enough that you start to get used to that.
I beg to differ. I say that people who have actively gone out looking for new speakers will be like, "Oh, these speakers sound weird. They don't sound anything like the ones I hate at home." Like,
oh, I see.
Yeah, I think they prefer them no matter what. It's just
you prefer whatever's new.
No, you prefer what you know, even if you don't like it that much. Mm-hmm. It's why you end up with people who they get a speaker that's slightly they're like, I have clip speakers. Now I've got these Horn Lotus speakers from so and so. Now I've got something with a a diamond tweeter or something like that. Now I've got this, and they sort of ease their way into the other way. They can't just going from one extreme to the other. It's like, I have paradigm speakers, now I have golden ear. Like, really? Wow, okay, good job, I guess. Wow, you can change your mind. So but either way, yeah, Gary, don't worry about it. It's just what you're used to right now and what you're preferring right now, and buy some headphones. That'll really mess you up.
Yeah, I mean, if you are the sort of person who's like, I want one sound that I consistently like everywhere I go, well, then what you really want to do is acoustically treat every room, even if they're different sizes than that, but to get them all to about the same reverberation time in every single room. That means you're going to have to measure. You're going to have to measure every sound setup that you make and do perhaps lots of EQ, perhaps use a program like Dirac or something like that can work with the time domain and reflections. Odyssey EQ editor app can do that too. So you might have to get into real nitty-gritty fine-grained stuff to attempt to make every room sound the same, as long as the speakers are capable of being EQ'd to doing that, and the room can be treated to make it similar reverberation regardless of size. It's a weird way to live. I think half the fun is having some different sound in different places, and it's certainly much easier to have different sound in different places. Or
you could do what most people do, which is have one home theater and not 15 different rooms in your house that have different speakers in it. I mean, this is the whole point, right? To put it back on Gary, his whole point was he wanted to experience new things.
Yes.
Well, okay, so you have, and now you have, and I would not say that you have varying degrees of quality. You have varying degrees of sound. It's just slightly different. Yes, it might be a little bit edgier, but maybe that little bit edgier in that one room is good for specific types of content.
Yep.
And that's how you look at it. You don't look at it as it sounds different, I don't like it, or it doesn't, these other speakers sound better. Hey, man, you're in there pedaling on the freaking bike. Don't tell me that
There's
you're not putting any noise into that room.
You got a noise floor going on while you're pedaling. That's unavoidable.
And plus, I mean, you're breathing and everything else. I know when I'm like doing exercise, I could totally hear myself breathe the whole time, especially running or bicycling or anything like that. You really hear yourself. So, I would not look at this. I can't now. I'm imagining Gary sitting there on the bike, not pedaling.
That could be the case. Stuff. I would not put that past an audiophile.
In which case, you know what? This is exactly the point. Now you need to figure out what content sounds best on each of your systems, and then you can spend 3 months on that.
Yeah, I think it's worrying about which one is right. And since we don't have the same sort of rigid specifications that the video side of the world has, because those have exacting specifications for the colors and the nit levels and all that stuff now, that you can say, I am bang on or I am exactly this much off. But audio has no such thing. We don't have any specifications that strict, that exact, that accurate, that we can pinpoint to. When you meet someone who is mastering music, they're like, yeah, I try to master this so that it sounds good on everything from crappy iPod headphones all the way up to the best home theater in the world, and that's my goal. And it's not going to sound the same in every place, but I'm trying to get it so that it sounds like you can hear what the person is singing. So,
right.
Yeah.
Damien on Twitter, if you don't really need if you don't need a really long HDMI cable, just a regular 6-foot length, which HDMI cable do we recommend? Well, if you want to absolutely have a bulletproof 100%, this is going to be the best that I can get for right now, guaranteed. Go to Blue Jeans Cables and get one of theirs.
Yes.
If you want something that's inexpensive, I mean, Monoprice.
Yes.
And just about anything else. Just make sure it says that has the certification. It really, 6 feet ain't hard to do.
It definitely shouldn't. But yeah, Monoprice has their certified premium high-speed HDMI cables, labeled 18 gigabits per second. They have the fancy little sticker. The little holographic sticker is there. It's a little hologram in that shiny silver part up there. And a little pro tip, if you would prefer to buy them from Amazon, you can buy them from Amazon and get the free shipping. Usually the price is like 20 cents more per cable, but then you get free shipping. And if you have Amazon Prime, you get free shipping anyway. So, yeah.
Christian hasn't bought any new gear for a little while now, so he found himself reading about various pieces of home theater equipment out of boredom. Welcome to my world, sir. You want to guarantee I'm going to click on the link? Put a picture of an amp on it. Like, what is that? I'm touching it. He started looking into the Dayton SUB-1500 subwoofer, and it's making him question his dual SVS PB-1000 purchase. The SUB-1500 is a 19 3/4 inch cube, weighs around 56 pounds, so the dimensions and weight are both greater than the PB-1000. It's got a larger diameter driver, 15 inches versus 10, and the only hardware spec where the PB-1000 numbers are bigger is the amplifier wattage, which is 150 watts versus the for the Dayton versus 300 watts for the SVS. The SUB-1500 has a frequency response listed as 23 to 140, but they don't say what plus or minus dB range that is. So it's clearly inferior. I mean, clearly, but let's go on. Is this a case where they claim frequency response is misleading? The PB-1000 actually plays way lower. It does play way lower. It plays down to, what are you doing? Dude.
Somebody has entered Tom's room.
My kids, what? There's 3 bathrooms in this house, and he wants to come in here and use the home theater bathroom.
I see.
He knows I'm in here.
Yes. I
am sorry. All right. So it's claiming a frequency response for 23 to 140, but it doesn't say what it is.
It doesn't say plus minus 3 dB. How? Well, I'll get into this after you give your answer.
Yeah, but the PB-1000, I think it claims 20,
19.
right?
No, they claim 19.
19?
Minus 3 dB at 19 is what they
And that's guaranteed, dude. That's guaranteed.
Yeah.
That's in room lower. Yeah. Depending on your placement.
Brent Butterworth reviewed the PB-1000. He did a CEA 2010 on it, and he's like, it was minus 3 dB at 18 hertz in his case, so they weren't lying. It was definitely, it got to 19 for sure. Yeah. That was the PB-1000.
So I don't know why. I don't know what in this would make you think that this would, I mean, it's got to be the price, right? It's got to be cheaper.
Well,
is that what it is?
It is definitely cheaper, yeah. So somebody did do a CEA 2010, except they didn't do it correctly. So they did the measurement process correctly, but not the setting correctly. However, even with the setting, which was, let's say, beneficial to the numbers, it would have made the numbers look better, they did confirm that the tuning port frequency really is 23 hertz. And it really does this is the Dayton we're talking about now, it really does extend down to 23 hertz properly. And then it drops off a cliff. Because they got response down at 20 hertz in a room. All right, so they were in a room. They had response at 20 hertz, but it was way quieter at 20 hertz versus 23. Yeah. So they must have, not only is it dropping off because it's a ported sub, they also have a filter on there to protect the driver, which I'm all for. That's a good thing.
Well, I mean, Axiom did that with their EP500. People got mad. They're like, it had a 19 hertz brick wall filter on it.
Yeah.
Like, it was just...
I'm like, if the alternative is this thing is going to bottom out or start distorting really badly, by all means, put a filter on the thing and protect the driver. 23 hertz is good extension. It's amazing.
How much is this sub?
Okay, so it's $200. You can get it for $198 on Parts Express. That's the last question coming. It's really inexpensive. So that's really good for $200. It really is. Yeah. It's good response. Honestly, its distortion is not that bad if you crank it really up high. So, I mean... There's only so much you can do at that price point. It's got a nice weight to it, so it's not like its cabinet is super flimsy or something, but it's got a little bit of flex to it. They can't put all the bracing into it.
Right.
It's a big cavity in there. It's a big cube. So, a few little things had to be taken away there, but honestly, it's a really good value. If you have $200 to spend and the physical space to allocate to a 20-inch cube, which is not small... That is not a small cube. Make yourself a cardboard model to figure out how big a 20-inch cube is. It's a big box. But if you can do that, this is awesome. But it's amazing what it takes to actually get down to 20 hertz. It's so much harder than you would imagine.
Right. So the specs say the Dayton's ported, but Christian couldn't see any ports in the photos. Is that misprint in the specs? Well, clearly it's not, because you just said that it was ported. So,
the port's on the bottom. It's hiding underneath there. This photo I'm showing is actually the Dayton 1200, which is the 12-inch version, but it's the exact same design. It's got port down there on the bottom.
There it is. I can see the port. I didn't know I could see the photos over
here. It's underneath. That's why it wasn't showing in the photos of the front.
Why
or the back.
Is there a cable coming out of there? Is there supposed to be a cable
somebody just tucked it in there. Or that's how the way it ships, maybe. I don't know. They probably tuck it in there when it ships.
So he says the sub 1500 sells for only $198 on Parts Express. The PB-1000 is $500. Could he really have gotten similar performance for so much less? Or is the sub 1500 actually nowhere near as good, which would explain the price difference? Well, there's a couple of things that you're paying for with the SVS that you're not getting with this. The first thing is that you're going to get, I don't know what the output differences are, but I'm imagining with a 150 watt amp versus 300 watt amp, you're going to get quite a bit more output.
The PB-1000 was significantly louder, 4 or 5. Don't quote me on it. I think it was 4 or 5 dB across the board louder.
So you're going to get more output, you're going to get lower output, and that just costs money. Plus, you get the protection that you're 100% guaranteed that this thing is not 100% guaranteed, but this thing is not gonna break on you.
Yeah.
And not only that, we know from a myriad of different comments from people, SVS stamps behind their products, so
Definitely.
you're paying for that as well.
Yep.
So there is all of that.
And the free shipping both ways, and a fully variable phase knob. The Dayton doesn't have one of those. It's got a polarity polarity switch, which is fine. There's nothing wrong with that, but just one little feature difference.
So, I mean, do you think that it? Well, I mean, this is the question. You're like, well, what's the 5 dB? I mean, 5 hertz is what it is. The 5 hardest hertz to get to.
Yep.
Is what you're. If you are paying for nothing, you're paying for that.
Yeah.
That is, for me, worth it. Getting down to 20 hertz and sub 20 hertz is a very important part of a true home theater. There's lots of places where you can watch TV, but you're not in a home theater until something starts shaking. And that requires bass, and it requires output. Now, will this Parts Express shake your couch? Probably.
Oh, yeah, and it'll give you a heck of a kick drum in that 35 to 50 hertz range. You'll have a lovely kick drum coming out of this thing.
But you're not going to get those lowest sounds. You're not going to get those deep basses, which is to me, is what makes a home theater special. So you're asking me if you could have gotten similar performance for a lot less. The answer is yes, you could get similar performance, but what you're giving up is, I think, the most important parts of what a sub does. Like, can you get a cheaper speaker if you left off the tweeter? Probably. But you would be missing a lot of what a speaker is supposed to be doing by leaving off that tweeter, which is essentially what's happening here. Now, if you bought that, if you sent the SVSs back and you bought this and you came to me and said, man, I don't notice any difference, this is fantastic, I would be absolutely 100% over the moon for you. That's great.
No, I mean, I want to make it clear, I'm a fan of this Dayton.
It's a great little sub.
I think it's
if you got $200, this is where to put it. Mm-hmm. But if you can save up $500, you should definitely get the PB-1000. So that's where I stand. I mean, I think that getting down to 20 hertz is extremely important, and it's worth the money. But if you can't, this is a super dude. I wish this thing was around when I was first starting off.
Well, I mean, the sub 1200 as well. Really good value on that sub 1200. Yeah.
I 100%. I bought a little KLH $99 sub that was about the size of my laptop, and it was awful. It was a complete waste of money. I'm glad that these things are out there now for people who are on a budget.
Yeah.
So I'll gladly point people in that direction. But you had $500. Now you had more than $500. You got duals.
You had $950.
I'm sorry. I mean, I think you got your money's worth. I mean, I just do. Patrick has been reading articles about LCD. Everybody's reading today. LCD and OLED panel manufacturing. He's noticed that these articles often mention generations, with numbers like Gen 6, Gen 8.5, Gen 10.5 being brought up either in reference to the manufacturing facility itself or to the LCD or LED panels. What do these generation numbers actually mean? A recent HG Guru article talks about how China is presently planning and constructing several 10.5 Gen plants and even a couple 11 Gen plants, but that Foxconn downsized its plant in Wisconsin from 10.5 Gen panel production to a Gen 6 plant. That's some confusing language. What does it mean? Just reading it, to me, this is just talking about how up to date or how new the technology is. What that's going in there, what is going into these panels. So if you think of a panel from we talk about LCDs, one that how many zones of dimming does it have?
It's none of that. Nope. Nah. Sorry.
That's okay. You tell me then.
So it's just the size of the panels that they can produce. That's
really it's just the size.
I have no idea why they refer to it as a generation, but that is the unit of size is a generation. Very strange to pick that word. They're talking about the substrate that they're producing. So out of a single substrate, they will produce many different size panels.
Okay,
so they'll make one.
It's like the size of the dough that's coming out of the roller, and then you can cut it into any size.
Or the wafers that you make a CPU on. You punch out a ton of CPUs out of one wafer that's produced. So,
I always remember. I used to work at a glass manufacturing plant, and they would have these ribbons of glass that would come off that would get cut. They would be 3 inches thick. So it's basically the same thing. Yeah.
So they're making these big substrates out of which they cut different sizes of panels. So a great example is they were just talking about those new OLED plants that LG is building. Their current plants in both South Korea and the one that they're going to be building in China there, those are all generation 10.5 plants. No, they're less than that. I forget the actual generation number that they are, but that's why the biggest size that they can produce is a 77-inch panel, and then they make some other smaller panels out of that substrate. When they get to the 10.5, they'll be able to make an 88-inch panel. So like you'll see there are some Samsung LCDs that have that 88-inch screen size. Those would be coming from generation 10.5 plants. Generation 11 plants can get even, I don't know what is going to be, 99-inch panel? I don't know. But yeah, a 10.5 generation plant is producing substrates that are 176 inches diagonal. That's the size of the substrate. So they can punch out 355 inches across and 355 inches down if they want to do that, or they can make a couple of 77 inches, that type of thing. Or a couple of 88 inches out of a 10.5. Yeah.
Okay. That's a stupid nomenclature.
I have no idea why that's what they use, but that it's referring to the substrate size. Yeah.
Terry. As a reminder, Terry currently has a 135-inch silver ticket screen and a Sony HW55ES projector that he has mounted to his ceiling 14.5 feet away from the screen. Now that we confirmed for him that he could upgrade to a JVC X790 projector and mount it farther back without any issues, he's looking forward to having a setup where his projector is no longer hanging directly above any seats. You know what, dude? I am like 100% with you. I do not like the projector out in the room like that. It kind of drives me nuts. I don't know why. It's always bothered me. So I love that I have my projector back on a shelf. I wish that shelf was enclosed so that you couldn't see the projector at all. I'll be dead honest with you.
Hush box. You could build a hush box.
I'm not doing that. There's zero chance that's ever happening. Never. All right. So he intends. I say never. I would totally do it if it was a new house.
Sure.
But in this house, it's not happening. My wife is already talking about downsizing.
Oh.
Like when my kids
when
leave,
the kids
like,
move out,
we're gonna have to downsize. I'm like, I don't care where we go as long as it has a home theater.
Yeah.
She's like, I know. I'm like, good. Just remember, home theater.
Pull out couch. It's also your bedroom.
I'll live in the home theater. You just let me know when it's time to cook. I'll come out and cook for you. He intends to construct a shelf on his back wall to hold the projector. Yay! And he was thinking he could easily make the shelf a bit bigger so that it can also hold the battery backup power protection device. But he'd still prefer something on the smaller and less expensive side. So which battery backup would we recommend? Dude, I just recommend you run the wire back to your battery backup with the rest of your gear.
With the rest of your gear?
Yeah.
You could. I mean, so you can do the thing where you just, well, I guess you could run it outside the wall if you want to, and you have a way to cover it that doesn't look too bad. Or if you want to run it inside the wall, you simply get one of the outlets that is a male outlet instead of a female outlet, right. Or a male inlet, I guess would be the correct term.
Yeah, don't go to Home Depot and ask those guys because they're going to look at you like you have lost your mind.
You can just order one on Amazon. They're cheap. They're like $12.
They're cheap. Yeah,
male
cheap.
Inlet. Yeah. So you could,
and then you can just. I mean, it's you don't need any special permits or anything. You're just running an in-wall extension cord. Basically, you just need to make sure you put the right box on it. On either side, and then you're going to run it back down to your the rest of your gear. And I think it's cheaper than battery backups can sometimes be loud. So I mean, I don't know the ones you're recommending. I know. I said sometimes.
Yeah.
But I don't know how loud the ones that he's going to suggest, Rob's about to suggest, are. But I would just run the cable back.
Yeah. So obviously, people who've been listening to us for a long time, they're going to think we're going to say APC. And if you are buying one to protect all of your gear, I would suggest an APC. But J-type would be the affordable one, a J25 or a J35 if you want voltage regulation. That'd be great for all your gear, but it's overkill for just a projector all by itself, and it would be a bit big and heavy to sit on a shelf. It's like the size of a short receiver, like it's got the same width and depth as a receiver. It's a big, heavy thing with a lead acid battery inside of it, and then not that tall, but I wouldn't go for that. So the reason I won't tell you to plug in a JVC projector to an APC back UPS unit is because if you talk directly to APC, they will say, our warranty coverage are like $100,000, anything plugged into this warranty coverage if something goes wrong. They're like, it applies to the things that we say this product is meant for. And the back UPS units are meant for networking things and computer peripherals. That's what they say it's meant for. They don't say it's for AV equipment. They have a whole separate line that they say is for AV equipment, but that would be the J-type units that I just talked about, or the even more expensive S-type units. So I will instead recommend something kind of similar, although it actually has voltage regulation, from Tripp Lite. They have their, let's see, what is it called? Is it AV or VA or something? This thing. I'm forgetting the letters at the beginning.
AV is...
It's AVR. Okay, so that's automatic voltage regulation. So automatic voltage regulation, the AVR series, it looks similar to the back UPSs, but Tripp Lite on their own website says, we recommend these for audio-video components. So if they tell you that they don't, you can point them to their own website and say that they do. So that's kind of all it is. Now,
Let me know how that conversation works out for you, because they'll be like, yeah, well, we're going to change our website, and we're not covering your crap.
Right. But I'm going to recommend specifically the 900 VA. So it's the AVR 900U is the exact model. The reason is you want it to have a little bit more wattage capacity off of the batteries themselves than the projector is ever going to use. So the next step down is only 350 watts, and it's possible for that JVC to draw as much as 380 watts.
Yeah.
Unlikely that it will be, but just on the outside chance, considering. So first of all, this AVR 900 from Tripp Lite, you can find for $100 on Amazon. The normal price is $120. So either way, I don't think it's breaking the bank. It's the protection that you need, and it's bigger than you might think. Do be aware of the size and the weight. It is still a fairly beefy battery, but it's certainly smaller than the J-type, and the price, I think, is right, and that can do up to 480 watts off of the battery. So it'll be fine.
Yeah, I honestly think this is a lot more trouble than it's worth.
Yeah, just run the thing, run the cable.
Just run the cable. So yeah, lastly, he asks, now why is our sign off for AVRant now go out and listen to something? Shouldn't it be now stay in and watch something? Dude, I made that sign off 10, almost 11 years ago. That is a long time.
It's a legacy. It's tradition. That's where that comes from.
It's not going away.
No.
I mean, somebody'd have to really convince me that they got the perfect sign off for us.
Both of us would have to leave this podcast, I think, before that sign off ever disappears.
that's not going away. All right, Chris on Twitter. Chris wants to snag a 3D TV.
Come on now. I'm with you, Chris. We haven't even said what you're talking about, but I'm with you, Chris.
Chris. Oh, welcome to 2015. Chris wants to snag a 3D TV so that he'll still have the option to watch his 3D movie collection whenever the mood hits him. He found a seller offering both a Samsung C8000 in a 55-inch size and a Vizio M series back when they were still edge-lit and did 3D in a 60-inch size. The seller doesn't even know what price to ask for, so he's letting Chris make an offer. Which of these two TVs should he opt for, and how much should he offer as the price? Well, if it's edge-lit, dude, what's the deal with the Samsung? Is that plasma?
Oh no,
is that edge-lit as well?
That's also edge-lit.
Ugh.
Yeah.
Can't you just get a projector or something? I mean,
that is the modern option. I mean, that's the modern display to buy would be a projector. Or I guess if you can go way higher in price and get a Sony Z9D, that still does 3D and it's 4K and HDR and all the things, but that's crazy expensive for a Z9D. So he's not looking to spend that much, clearly, that he's checking used. Yeah. I mean, I have a clear preference between these two. Because he said the whole point of this is for 3D, right?
Right.
So the Samsung does active shutter 3D and the Vizio does passive 3D.
Well, there you go.
Now, I vastly prefer passive, with the caveat in this instance of this Vizio M series from this far back was a 1080p panel, and passive 3D means you're cutting the resolution in half. So each eye will be seeing 1920 by 540, not 1920 by 1080. But to me, it's worth it to even have the half the resolution, because you get no crosstalk with passive 3D. With the shutter glasses, you always get crosstalk, and that bugs me way more than things looking slightly less high res. So I would definitely prefer the Vizio, and it's also larger. 60 inches is larger than 55, so that's an easy one for me. So the only question to me is, how do you figure out the price? What would you do, Tom?
Well, the easy way to do, I mean, first of all, you got to look at what M series are selling for these days at
except there's no equivalent of like a 1080p M series anymore.
I know, but we could even look at the 4Ks and go, a 55-inch M series is like $800.
Yeah, right. Or I think it's even less. I think it's like,
I think it might be close to
650 or 700 for the 55-inch.
So I mean, this is an older TV, right? That this guy's trying to sell. So,
That's right.
I mean, the proper thing to do is to like look at eBay, see what things have sold for.
Yeah.
You know, you could do that sort of research. But my, off the cuff, yeah, I'd probably off this guy $200. Call it a day.
Okay. So I was going to say 300. I'm always generous with my offers. I'm like, that's basically half the price that you could buy a nice 1080p 55. Well, you can find 55-inch 1080p TVs for about $300 today, brand new.
Yeah.
But they don't do 3D. And they're very, very cheap TVs,
Right.
those ones. So I'm like, yeah, it's both of these sold for about $700 when they were like
$200
at the end of their
offer
life.
$200 and be willing to negotiate.
Sure. Yeah.
You walk out there with $250, you've done something.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah. Nice.
Anonymous has an Oppo 203 Ultra HD Blu-ray player and an older non-HDR 720p 1080i display. Once you're Oppo, you can keep the display. He mostly wants the Ultra HD Blu-rays for Atmos. The video side of things is secondary.
Okay.
I'm with you there. With discs that only have HDR10 on them, everything is fine. All of Oppo's HDR to SDR conversion options are available, but the player is able to scale the 4K signal down to 1080i. Things look great even on this older, display. But Dolby Vision discs are more limited. You can manually set the Oppo 203 to always output HDR10 even with Dolby Vision discs, but that's of no use with a non-HDR display. And with Dolby Vision discs, the HDR to SDR conversion options do not apply. Instead, Dolby's HDR to SDR conversion is used, and there doesn't seem to be any way around that. Not having any manual HDR to SDR conversion options wouldn't necessarily be a deal breaker, but the bigger issue in this case is that Dolby Vision discs simply will not play with a 1080i instead of a 1080p output. No matter what, the Oppo 203 sees that it's a Dolby Vision disc, and it locks out the HDR to SDR options and the ability to scale any lower than 1080p.
Yep.
Oh, that stinks.
I know.
So is there, I thought the workaround was going to be 720p, but clearly not. So is there a workaround? He's regretting that he gave away his old HDR10 only player since he could have fed that HDR10 output into the Oppo and then used Oppo's HDR10 to SDR conversion and scaling down to 1080i. Wow, that's daisy chain. A bit crazy to daisy chain 2. Oh, wow, this guy's like, whatever, like I'm saying it and he's saying it. Daisy chain 2 Ultra HD Blu-ray players together, but it might, but at least it might have worked. So maybe get another cheap Ultra HD Blu-ray player that only does HDR10. Is there some other fix that might work, or should he use this as an opportunity to convince his girlfriend that he needs to upgrade his display because of this issue? Dude, straight up, you need to upgrade your display. I mean,
I'm not going to disagree with that. I mean, clearly
dude,
this is an older display. There's no question.
This is rocking like 09? I mean, I feel like this is like 09. You have gotten your money out of this thing. When my wife and I bought a new car, for me recently, and we traded in our Honda Pilot, 261,000 miles on it. This is the equivalent, the TV equivalent of a Honda Pilot with 261,000 miles. Everybody goes, wow, I can't believe it's still running. I'm like, yeah, kind of, it's not. I mean, it is, but any second now it's going down.
The engine turns over, but that's about it. Yeah.
No, it got me places. It was a good car. I mean, it was still running. It was just a mess. But yeah, you straight up need to now, I mean, I think all the fixes for this. Now, if you could find a cheap Ultra HD Blu-ray player to do that did nothing but HDR10, that is probably the only fix that is worth not buying another TV. Because everything else, like the HD Furies and all the other stuff that you can recommend, you're like, might as well buy a cheap 1080p TV.
I know people might have thought HD Furies, but they won't go any lower than 1080p either.
Oh, there you go.
They won't scale it down any lower than 1080p, so that's also not a fix. And honestly, if you were going to buy one of those, you could buy an inexpensive Ultra HD Blu-ray player to do the daisy chain. I mean, the only other fix I had was, if you were going to do so anyway, you could start backing up your Ultra HD Blu-rays to MKVs, because anytime you make MKV, even on a Dolby Vision disc, it turns it into HDR10. There's no Dolby Vision support for Make MKV as of yet. Then you would have HDR10 MKVs, which you could then play back via Kodi or Plex or whatever. So whatever player you were going to use for that, you could then I suppose plug into the Oppo if you really wanted to keep using its HDR10 to SDR conversion, or you could just play it straight onto your display and have whatever device you're using to play back those MKVs do the conversion. But I mean, I would only recommend that if you were planning to do that type of server system anyway, because that's going to be more expensive than getting a cheap Ultra HD Blu-ray player that only does HDR10. Right. Yeah.
I think you're in new TV territory here, sir.
There is an argument to be made for it here that I'm suspecting.
Legitimate.
I'm suspecting he maybe wanted to upgrade this display anyway. I would think that's maybe an idea and noodling around in his head.
I think that he figured out that he was going to have this problem if he got rid of that other older Ultra HD Blu-ray player and said, "Sure, honey, we can give it to your sister. We don't really need it." And then now we're totally hosed. What are we gonna do? I guess I'll have to buy a new TV.
Guess I'll have to. Yup.
Steven. Okay, this is a bit of a preamble here. Steven has an Epson 8350 projector. At one point, he took it into Best Buy and paid them to replace the lamp for him. After 1 week, that replacement lamp blew and broke his original 8350. So Best Buy replaced his 8350 and stood behind their warranty. Okay, let me tell you what happened there. The idiot touched the lamp with his fingers.
Very well could be.
Guarantee. I mean, without as much as I can guarantee that that's what happened. I would bet the bank that that's what happened. Those lamps, if you get any bit of oil on them, which is what's on your fingers, no matter how how recently you washed your hands, you cannot touch them. That oil will reflect that heat right back into that lamp. It will explode in very little time. I learned that the hard way when I was in drama, and we replaced a bunch of lamps, and no one told me, and it was like fireworks. People were running.
Pop, pop,
it was
pop,
like
pop, pop, pop.
They were popping.
Yep.
All right. He used the original lamp on the second 8350 unit for about 3,000 hours now, and he's pretty happy with that lifespan since he does not use the lowest eco mode lamp settings. He tends to prefer a brighter picture mode using plenty of light output. Epson's official price for a replacement lamp directly from them is $300, so he bought from Pure Land Supply instead for half the price. He confirmed that the actual bulb inside is a genuine Osram bulb, just like their official Epson replacement. It's just the outer housing isn't identical, but that all seemed to work fine anyways. But then he noticed a slight problem with the image. With dark full colors or gray, he could see some vertical bars that he'd never seen before. With bright images, everything looked fine. But with darker images, there was maybe 6 or 7 vertical bands of different thicknesses and brightness levels, and they were not evenly spaced apart, and it was all very inconsistent. He tried reseating the replacement lamp, but the results were no different. So he started thinking he maybe should have paid full price for an official Epson lamp, or that more likely it's time to ditch the 8350 and go for a full HDR flat panel instead. All right, so that was the preamble.
It was. Now we know what the situation is.
Now we know what the situation is. I mean, could it be the lamp that's making these vertical lines?
I've got an idea about that.
Yeah, so, okay, there we go. Even though he started looking at flat panels and pretty much fell in love with the Sony A1E OLED, he told himself to be patient. Now he's both happy and disappointed that he did, because the vertical bands seem to have gone away. Somewhere between 1 and 2 weeks of use, the vertical bands vanished, and now he can put up a dim, solid color without seeing any inconsistency, just like how the 8350 used to look before. He doesn't believe in projectors magically fixing themselves, so what could have happened? Well, if there was something on that bulb, I guess, could have burnt off, or just could. I hate to use the word break-in, but it's kind of what it sounds like happened.
It's almost that. Well, what it is the lamp dims actually a not insignificant amount within the first 10 hours, but certainly within the first 25 to 100 hours of use. So he said 1 to 2 weeks, so you definitely could have been in that window. It dims a fairly significant amount from when it's fresh out of the box. Percentage-wise, you probably lose more light output in that very first 100 hours than any other time, which is precisely why any professional calibrator will tell you to use a new bulb that's been replaced in a projector for they always usually want 200 hours, so that you're well past that first part before they come in and calibrate your projector, because they'll tell you flat out, otherwise, I can calibrate this now, but as soon as you use it for 100 hours, the calibration is going to be off. The light output is going to be different. The color spectrum is going to be different. The bulb changes quite significantly in that first 100 hours. So pretty much all imaging devices that we use, LCDs, OLEDs, not so much DLPs, they shouldn't, but LCDs and OLEDs and even liquid crystalline silicon, they have some of this little bit of inconsistency in the dark images. We're seeing this with the OLED panels that bug me and Lee Overstreet so much, because it's so close to perfect, but not quite. You get this bit of vertical banding. Most of the LCDs, even the really expensive one, have a little bit of vertical banding in the dark areas, this bit of inconsistency. So the panel itself, the 8350's LCD panel itself, almost certainly has a little bit of inconsistency, but you only see it when the bulb is at its absolute brightest to bring out the very small difference. And as soon as that bulb has now dimmed just the little bit that it does, you don't see it anymore because it's just not enough of a contrast difference for your eye to pick up anymore. I really genuinely believe that's all it is.
Cool. So he's happy he doesn't it goes along with my normal fix for things, which is unplug it, plug it back in. It doesn't work. Just wait, see if it goes away. So he's happy he doesn't have to replace his 8350 now, but he also got a good look at that 4K HDR OLED, and the 8350 just can't compete. So should he bite the bullet and spend upwards of $3,000? You just bought a new bulb for this projector, right?
So, he did. $150. He just, but he could sell it.
He could. The only person that can really answer this question is you. Let's be honest.
Right.
You're the only one. You're the one who's going to spend the money. You're going to decide for yourself whether or not this is going to be a worthwhile purchase. I don't remember how big his image was, and he's now going to get something that's almost certainly smaller. So.
Oh, it would be. Well, there's no chance that the OLED. So $3,000 is looking at the 65-incher.
Yeah.
There's no way his projector is only 65 inches.
I'm going to be dead honest. I mean, as much as you love that image when you're standing 2 feet away from it in the store or whatever you were doing, I imagine you're going to get it home and you're going to be like, it's kind of small. It's a little bit on the small side.
You could sit way closer, I guess.
Right. You could move your chair a little closer until it looks right, but then, you have to recalibrate everything and move your speakers around and everything else. So I would say at $3,000, you're not that far off from a 1080 for a 4K projector. You won't get Dolby Vision or anything.
You won't get Dolby Vision, but you can get HDR 10.
Right. So, I mean, I think
and
that's
you even have options as far as, so if $3,000 is your budget, if you were like, I could spend $3,000 on OLED, I'm in agreement that maybe keep the screen you have and go to something that's close to $3,000 for a projector, because that can get you JVC's DLA. So this is from 2017 to get down to this just under $3,000 price point. But Amazon right now is selling the RS420. That is equivalent to the X570. I don't know why JVC keeps going with this two lines where they're identical. They have their Precision line and they have their Professional Reference Series line, but they're identical, so they have two model numbers for everything. But yeah, the DLA RS420 is available on Amazon for under $3,000. That is the 2017 model, but it's a really good projector with crazy good black levels. It does HDR 10, so it's not the step up 520 or 620, which are above it, that have even darker blacks and even better contrast and even wider color. But compared to your 8350, this would be a huge upgrade. The alternative, of course, for even a little bit less money would be Epson's. If you already like your Epson and you want another Epson, you could get the 5040 UB. That's under $2,700 now, and that will also do HDR 10. So yeah, I'm kind of in agreement.
JVC does 3D though, if that makes a difference.
They do 3D. He never mentioned 3D. The old OLED doesn't do 3D, but I'm kind of in agreement there. Maybe keep the screen and up the projector.
Andrew on Facebook. Didn't we just do it, Andrew?
Very possibly.
Andrew?
There can be more than one Andrew in the world.
I don't know. Too bad you don't put their last initial in here so we can tell them apart. Andrew bought a refurbished Denon S720W AV receiver from Gibby's in Canada. Now, a little over a month past its warranty, it's having a big problem. When he presses the power to turn it on, its green light flashes a few times, and he shuts it down with a red light blinking. And then it shuts down with the red light blinking. It seems to be going into protection mode. He tried disconnecting everything and very, very carefully reconnecting his speakers to make sure there are absolutely no stray wires, no dice. It still shuts down every time he tries to power up. Any ideas? Yeah. There's something back there touching, dude. I hate to break it to you. It's either inside or outside. Those are your options. It can either be inside or outside. So chances are it's outside. So unplug everything and then don't plug anything in.
Right.
Then just turn it on.
Yep.
If it still goes into protection mode, you will go to the back of this receiver and you will clean it. Like compressed air,
Sure.
all that, anything just to clean all this stuff out. There might be something back there you're not even noticing it. It's small, it's like a hair or something. Who knows?
No, people don't like to believe it, but spider web material can conduct electricity.
Yeah, that's right.
It is electrically conductive, and it is not at all impossible for a spider to have strung a little web between two of your binding posts. It's amazing how little it takes to create a short circuit. He sent in a very short little video on Facebook showing this, and it is so when you first press the power button,
you can see it cycle on.
Yeah,
right?
Denon AV receivers don't power up the speaker amplifiers immediately. They turn on and they wait a little bit to charge up the capacitors inside, and then they activate the amplifiers. And as soon as the amplifier went to activate, pop, it goes red, turns off, the red light blinking. I'm like, yeah, it's protection mode. That's a short circuit on one of the speaker binding posts. But it could be internal, exactly, and it could be a spider web.
Yeah. So I was answering that question on Facebook.
You did, yeah.
When it was coming in, and I could tell he was like, yeah, I unplugged everything. I'm like, yeah, did you really unplug everything? I was real careful when I plugged it. I'm like, okay, unplug everything. Keep it unplugged. And I said the compressed air thing. I think it fixed it, right? Did I fix it?
Oh yeah, he was super happy because he's like, well, that was like 10 minutes of troubleshooting that no one else had an answer for. Everyone else is like, oh, warranty replacement, get it repaired, and you're like, blow on it. He's like, oh yeah, that worked.
Blow on it. Hey, that solves a lot of problems. Just blow on it. Hey, remember the discs, the cartridges for
Nintendo.
The NES? You gotta blow on them.
That was half the fun. Half the fun was blowing on your Nintendo cartridges.
Bob, I don't know what you were doing with your Nintendo cartridges. I feel like we had a different experience. Bob thought he'd be upgrading his speakers and receiver with a tax refund, but it turns out he isn't getting as much back as he anticipated. Thanks,
I guess
Obama.
You don't make over $1 million a year. That's the problem. It's your fault.
Thanks, Mitch McConnell. I don't know any Republicans or any politicians anymore. I stopped listening to the news. It's too depressing. So with his budget shrunk, he decided to consider the video side of his setup instead, because the video side is where things are cheapest. He started by busting out a little 50 lumen 480p portable projector and throwing its image onto a wall. But when that failed to impress, I can't imagine why, he decided to give the thing a fair shot by setting up a portable 90-inch projection screen and watching in pitch blackness. And he was duly impressed, but he wanted it bigger and better, so he installed a 100-inch pull-down screen in front of his flat panel and put up a shelf on his back wall and went for a $229 800 by 600 resolution BenQ projector. He never really tested it out, though, because he quickly discovered that with the projector as far back as his wall would allow, he still couldn't fill the whole screen. So he upped his budget and was all set to get an Optoma HD143X, which has quite a few positive reviews, calling it one of the best home cinema projectors for around the $500 price point. But this time he checked its throw distance before buying it and discovered that it would have been problematic once more. This time it required him to mount it directly overhead instead of on the shelf that he wants to use. So he wound up, wait a second. I'm gonna say something that's gonna make you angry, but let's go on here.
Okay.
So you wound up with the Optoma EH336. Its throw distance and 1.3 times zoom let him dial in the size of the image perfectly while using his rear shelf, and he's very happy with the image. Furthermore, other than the differences in the throw distance, the EH336 being called a business projector, while the HD143X is called a home cinema projector, the two appear identical. So, is there some big difference between the two that he's overlooking, mainly getting the business version? Is he missing out on something major that the home cinema version would have given him? A couple things. First of all, you installed a shelf and then you hung it from underneath the shelf?
He did. That's necessary. These things don't have vertical lens shift. So to get it aligned with his screen, it became necessary so it had to be turned upside down. He supposedly could have, I guess, just rested it on its top, of the shelf.
Okay, so now I'm not going to say anything to make you mad then. Okay. So Yes, so the other one had to be closer. This one didn't have to be as close. Right?
Yeah, so the one that he ended up with it fit. You know, he could put it where he wanted to, and it had the right throw distance and enough zoom range that he could make it.
Well, I kind of like what he's done because he's taken these, mounted it to the shelf. But the shelf, if you see, he's got like those. You can move the shelf up and down on this.
Yes, you can
on the little runners.
It's an adjustable shelf. Yeah,
which is fantastic. That's a good idea. It's not the most aesthetically pleasing thing I've ever seen,
but it's also behind him. So how much is he looking at?
Well, right. I mean, there's also just bare wire hanging down, so it wasn't like he's going to...
Channel Raceway can fix that for cheap.
What are you missing when you go business class? Now, I don't know if this is a specific projector,
right?
But business class, what you normally are giving up, the things that you will normally find that you will not have on a business class that you could have on a home cinema one would be better black levels, because they generally don't care about black. Many of the options as far as lens shift and all of that can sometimes be gone, and how loud in general the projector is. Not always the case, but those are the things I usually worry about when I look at business class projectors.
In this particular instance, though, these really are the same projector, except that in the case of the one that they're marketing to the cinema crowd, they did go to the trouble of slightly calibrating. Actually, did a pretty decent job of calibrating it, and then gave that a cinema picture preset, and they also include a couple of ISF picture preset modes. So those basically come close to Rec 709 color. They can't hit full Rec 709 color because these are what are dubbed brilliant color DLP projectors, which means that their color wheel is RGB, CY, so cyan and yellow and white. Those are the 6 segments. They do that so that it can get brighter.
Excuse me.
But it doesn't have as accurate color. So the ones that are more accurate, like the $700 BenQ HT2050, $200 more, but what they've done in that is made it 6 segments RGB, red, green, blue, right. And that gets more accurate color, but it's a bit dimmer. These ones, they sacrifice some of the color saturation and accuracy to get brighter. But you can still go ahead and, calibrate it. And so Optima did in the case of the HD143X, they calibrated it, called that cinema mode or ISF picture mode. Those modes are much dimmer. By necessity, they ended up being dimmer because they had to cut the light output to get higher accuracy in the color. Yeah. But basically that's all that's missing from the business one. You can get it just as accurate. You would just have to adjust it manually. There's no preset picture mode that's as accurate. But that's it. Everything else is the same.
So his EH336 offers 4 different lamp modes: Bright, Eco, Dynamic, and Eco Plus. Oh, is it in that order? That seems an odd order.
Well, that's the order that they list them, yeah.
The Eco Plus is called Super Eco. Like they're vegan and vegetarian. And
it depends on the country, actually. Some countries they call it Eco Plus, and other countries they call it Super Eco.
So he's stuck to using the Eco Plus lamp mode and finds the projector plenty bright even with some ambient light present. So what are the difference in these lamp modes?
Yeah.
I mean, there's just raw light output will be part of it, but sometimes they'll have the presets for the other stuff can be changed as well. But those, I mean, I find that with almost every projector I've used, especially if you have light control, whatever the dimmest one is usually the right one.
Yeah, no, they actually mention a little bit in their manual. So the bright mode, not surprisingly, they just peg the lamp at 100% of what it can do, and that's as bright as it can get. The Eco mode, they cut it down to 70%. So you lose 30% of your light output, but that makes your lamp last longer because it never gets brighter than 70% of its maximum
I bet dynamic
brightness.
mode's got like the dynamic iris, right?
Well, it's not a dynamic iris, it's a dynamic lamp. So you could think of this, so we talk about full array local dimming in LCDs. This would be global dimming.
Global dimming, yeah.
That's or you could think of it as a local dimming, but you have one zone. The whole thing is your only zone. So it's global dimming. So the dynamic means that they can use anywhere between the lamp almost being off all the way up to 100% of the lamp's brightness, depending on the scene that you're watching. If it's a very dim scene, they'll dim the lamp. If it's a very bright scene, they'll bring the lamp all the way up to 100%. The Eco Plus or the Super Eco is the same thing, except that the highest it ever gets is 70%. So when the image is very dim, it'll dim down the lamp. When the image is bright, it'll get as bright as it can, up to 70% of the lamp in Eco Plus mode. So that gives you the longest life possible, because a lot of the time you're not using anything close to the brightest image that it could be.
As long as it's doing a good job with it, because the only time that this sort of...
When you see the pumping of the light.
You see the pumping in the light. And I've been in theaters and homes where they've had LCDs that have like a light sensor.
That's right. Yeah, the ambient room light sensor.
Oh, God, that is just so bad. Like somebody walks in front of the TV and it goes bright or dim or dimmer, whatever.
Yeah. It's like, hey, it got darker in this room. Oh, wait, it didn't.
Yeah. So as long as you're enjoying it, it sounds like the mode I would have used.
Sure.
So,
and it does give you the longest lamp life. They claim up to 15,000 hours of lamp life if you use Eco Plus. I'm not sure if that's really going to be the case. But anyway, it will be longer than if you just pegged it in bright mode. That's for sure. And then he also mentioned, he was like, oh, when I watched in the Super Eco Plus mode, it looks like it's brighter than just the Eco mode. And I was like, but that's because you're seeing a greater shift in dynamics.
It's a contrast. Yeah.
When it's dim, it's dimmer. So to your eye, because your eye has a dynamic iris too, right? It's got your pupil. So to your eye, since it was dimmer in the dim scene, when it gets to a bright scene and the lamp also ramps up, to your brain says this is even brighter than the Eco, where it kept a consistent amount of light.
I can hear my family talking. It is 10:24 at night.
Is.
What is going on?
It's summer though. It's still light out, isn't it?
I'm gonna start smacking some kids around. All right, Mike. Mike currently has a 55-inch Samsung TV in his family room. It's an open floor plan, so the TV is viewable from the dining area and kitchen, and it's bright. What's bright? The TV
His room.
Or the area?
His room is bright.
So he would like to upgrade to a larger screen size, something that will work well with all the ambient light, and he'd like to have a wide viewing angle. He's got a sound bar, so he isn't concerned about the TV's built-in speakers at all.
Good.
$1,000 is his budget, and all the content they'd be watching on this TV is streamed. All of it?
That's what he said.
Mostly sports and kids shows, but Mike would enjoy being able to watch 4K Netflix and Vudu with HDR if that's possible. The TCL 6 series and Vizio M or P series seem like our go-to choices for this price range. But he's worried about viewing angle, so what do we recommend? We usually recommend an OLED, but $1,000? I don't know, dude.
You're not getting a 65-inch OLED for $1,000. Not yet. Wait, hey, maybe if you wait a few years and this new Chinese plant comes online and prices go through the floor, but not today.
Yeah, because just walking through stores, you can see the wall, the line of TVs up there, and you can watch as you're walking past, and the image shifts in color.
Oh, sure, yeah.
For these LCDs. So, yeah, I don't know. What you got, Rob?
So I'm going to point you over to LG, one of their LCD TVs, and they use IPS panels, in-plane switching panels, the whole point of which is to give you wider viewing angles, and they do. The big downside to IPS panels is they have nowhere near as deep a black level. The black is most definitely gray, but if your room is always quite bright, you're not going to notice that nearly as much as if you're in a dark or a completely blacked out room. So it's a bit of a trade-off there, but if the viewing angles matter a bit more than the deepest, darkest black levels,
if the room's bright,
be the way
then
to go.
Black level should not be an issue for him.
I also like LG because their WebOS platform, if you want to stream, use the built-in streaming apps that are built into the TV. I like the WebOS apps quite a bit. Sony does have a couple of different model series that use IPS panels, but they're more expensive, and they use the pretty awful implementation of Android TV that Sony's going with right now, and those apps are not much fun to use unless you just enjoy lag, unless you enjoy pressing the button and having nothing happen, so you press it again and then it goes, oh, I think I'll do what you did twice. So yeah, not a lot of fun with those Sonys right now. So yeah, the LG, the specific model you could look for, so they have a couple that would fit your price point in the 65-inch size. They do have a UK 6300 and then a UK 7700. Now the 65-inch UK 7700 bumps right up against your $1,000 budget, but you said you might like to watch 4K and HDR. Both of them are compatible with HDR, but I would call the UK 6300 series, HDR compatible, but not capable. Right. It really doesn't get anywhere near bright enough to give you a true HDR effect. The UK 7700, while it's not going to be a, flagship looking HDR thing, it does get up into the 500, 550 nit range, which is enough for you to go, yeah, that's HDR. So it's right up against your budget, but it's the size you want. It's got the wide viewing angles. It doesn't have great black levels, but it does halfway decent HDR. It is 4K. It has WebOS for the apps. I think that's a pretty good option.
All right. Mike went with the Onkyo TX-NR787 9.2 channel AV receiver that we mentioned in our news section a couple of weeks ago as being the least expensive receiver model out there that comes with 9 amplifiers built in. Okay.
Yeah, that's as far as its manufacturer suggested retail price. Yeah.
Mike doesn't have any plans to expand beyond 5.2.4. So was the 787 the right budget pick, or should he opt for something else to get him to 5.2.4? Apparently the boy doesn't want to buy used or B stock. So.
Well, the interesting thing is Accessories for Less now has this Onkyo TX-NR787 listed on their website. It's presently showing as no stock. It's showing as sold out, but they'll get some. I mean, this is a pretty new model, and they will get some sooner or later. They have it at $550 right now, which is definitely the least expensive AV receiver out there that can do 9, that can do 5.2.4 or 7.2.2 Atmos. Nothing else can do it for that price. So, I mean, your only alternatives, what could you have gotten? If you had gone to Accessories for Less, just before the podcast I checked, and they were saying they still have the last one of the SR6011s. That's Marantz SR6011s, $700. So if you paid full retail price for the 787, the Onkyo 787, it's $800.
Yeah.
So it's possible that a refurbished Marantz SR6011 from Accessories for Less, possible that you could have gotten that instead. There's the SR6012. They have that at $800 right now, so 6 of one, half a dozen of the other. Everything else is more expensive than this.
Right.
That can do 9. So what are the downsides of the 787? It doesn't have any pre-outs, so you must use the 9 internal amps. It cannot be expanded to any more than 9 speakers, so there's no
Which
way...
he doesn't care about.
Yeah, but there's no way to expand this to 7.2.4. It can't be done. I mean, opinion-wise, I would personally prefer to use Odyssey Multi-Q XT32 over AccuEQ Advanced, which is what they have in the 787. But that's personal opinion. That doesn't make me right about that. That's what I would prefer.
What do we even know about this AccuEQ Advanced? Because the last time that AccuEQ... the last thing I heard about that was that it was hot garbage, and
well,
it was good for setting stuff up as far as distances and stuff like that.
Distances and levels,
but the rest of it you could take or leave. Is there anything more advanced about the Advanced?
Oh, so AccuEQ Advanced has now given you the ability to use 3 microphone positions to get some spatial averaging. The original AccuEQ was 1 microphone position, yet another reason I really didn't like it. So AccuEQ Advanced, 3 microphone positions you can use now. A little bit of spatial averaging, but that's it. Everything else is the same. Yeah. But honestly, I mean, so especially if you got it for $550, I'm like, yeah, there's nothing else even close price-wise with the same capabilities.
That's right. And, I mean, it kind of, like we've said, or Rob said a number of times, and I agree with, the room EQ is the cherry on the top.
Right.
You getting your room right first is most important. Now, that being said, to me, I'd spend a couple of $100 extra bucks to get the Odyssey or Dirac.
And then you could spend $300 more than that to get Dirac if you wanted to,
Yeah. To me, it's worth it. But if it's not to you and you think that this sounds fine, then I say don't worry about it.
No, I mean, there's very little in this for me to say, there's no way I would tell you, oh, you have to return it and get something else. Absolutely not. This is right up there. And I'm happy to see Onkyo back in the mix. Because for a number of years, I just wasn't recommending because I didn't think they were giving the features and performance and that I was looking for that I would want to recommend at the same price points. But it ebbs and flows, and I'm happy to see them back being like, hey, we're bringing something at a price point that nobody else is. I'm like,
there was that year before Yamaha came out with the Avantage series that they were garbage. I was like, no one buy Yamaha. They're all crap. But then
Avantage made that okay. And then we were just kind of poking a little bit of fun at them this year because we're like, nothing changed from 2017 to 2018. They didn't
that
do,
probably means
like,
there's something big coming out from them because
probably
they
something big
tend
in
to do
2019.
that.
Yeah,
They tend to do that. They'll like take a year off.
yeah.
So that being said, if like I said, if you're happy with this thing, you definitely got the best budget pick you could. You're getting the most bang for your buck, and that used to be Onkyo. It used to be, and it wasn't that long ago. Like if you absolutely wanted all the possible features that you could get for the least amount of money that you could spend, Onkyo was the way to go.
Oh yeah.
And it wasn't until they dropped Odyssey that I was like, okay, you guys have just jumped the shark here. So, but if they're coming back around, I think they really should pick up Drac. If they picked up Drac, they would be right back in this race.
That would force their price point up, undoubtedly. But they're a big enough company, especially since they could put it in Pioneer as well if they wanted to.
Yeah.
They're a big enough company, they could probably get that price really attractive. Yeah, that would be a big deal.
Onkyo said that Onkyo 787 is THX certified and has THX listening modes. Listen, Onkyo, drop THX and spend that money.
Spend that money on Dirac instead.
Yeah, or Dirac. Yeah, are those worth? He asks if the THX listening modes are they worth the use? Are they still doing the REQ crap?
They are still doing the re-EQ, yes.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a THX thing. That's not Onkyo's choice. That's mandated
no, it's not.
by THX.
Yeah, and I've never been a huge fan of the THX listening modes. I mean, they're fine. You can try them out.
You can
I would
turn
definitely
re-EQ
give them
off. The thing that bugs me about re-EQ is that it always turns back on. You have to, every time you cycle the power on your Onkyo, you must manually turn re-EQ back off. But the reason I would say to very potentially use them as your listening mode is, so AccuEQ does not have an equivalent to dynamic EQ in Odyssey. So just again to explain in case someone isn't sure, that's the thing where if you turn the master volume down below reference level, it adjusts the output levels to keep everything audible, just so that you can still hear all the frequencies because your human ears are not linear. So there's no equivalent to that in AccuEQ for Onkyo, but THX, if you're using a THX listening mode, does have THX Loudness Plus.
Right.
And that does the same thing. It dynamically adjusts the output based on frequency response of how far below reference volume you've turned the volume dial. So that could be worth your while. I would go to the trouble of manually turning off re-EQ every time I did that, because all re-EQ does is roll off your high frequencies, and I'm not a fan of that.
Right.
But other than that,
For those of you
worth it.
that don't remember, because this is something we talked about on the podcast, but it's probably been a couple of years since, because I can't remember the last time I talked about a THX receiver. But the re-EQ, the idea is that movie theaters, their audio is mixed with a bump in the high frequency because the rooms are so big. The people are sitting so far away. There's so many people in there. The rooms are so dampened that they need extra treble.
Yes.
Okay. In order for that. So re-EQ basically rolls off the top end. Well, that's really kind of not necessary in a home theater. Like, at all.
Well, the thing was, when this all came around, we had THX certified DVDs.
Right.
And on those, THX made sure that the mix on the DVD was very similar to the theatrical sound mix. So the
Which
whole
means
idea,
that it had that bump in the high end.
it had, so when you listen to a THX certified DVD on a regular system without re-EQ, it sounded too bright. It sounded too harsh. So the whole idea was it's THX from end to end. You use the THX listening mode, they apply re-EQ to a THX DVD, and now it sounds correct in your house. But of course, most studios didn't sign on with this for THX, and they didn't THX certify their DVDs. And once Blu-ray came along, THX disappeared off of discs, and you didn't have that anymore. And so they were remastering for the home release anyway, and now it sounds too dull if re-EQ is on. But it's still on by default, and you must manually turn it off every time. But if you're willing to do that, it gives you something akin to dynamic EQ with the THX Loudness Plus feature.
Okay. So we've answered all of his questions, right? This last question, loudness management.
No, because that's a different thing. That's Dolby.
Is it really? Oh, all right. Okay. So when you went through the settings, there's something called loudness management for Dolby True HD and Dolby Atmos, Dolby surround signals. Is that the same as dynamic EQ? Is it something different? That is definitely something different.
That one is different. Yeah.
That's I don't know what that is because I had never looked at that setting before. But let me guess.
Okay.
It rolls off the bottom end so there's not as much bass so it doesn't bother people.
Nope.
It caps the total maximum volume you can turn it up to.
Not exactly.
All right, whatever. I give up. I don't care anymore. Let's go.
Well, have you ever seen your AV receiver flash a little message when you're flicking between cable channels that says dialogue normalization?
Probably. I don't know.
This is the dialogue normalization. Why they don't just call it dialogue normalization in the settings, I'm not sure, but it's under the name Loudness Management inside of the AV receiver settings. And
Loudness Management, because those commercials will be extra loud.
Yeah.
And they're cutting that.
The whole idea of dialogue normalization is that the level of dialogue is supposed to remain consistent across programs, program to program. It's all meant to, so when you're using a Dolby branded signal, you can include this little flag to say, here's the level that dialogue is supposed to be, and then dialogue normalization, loudness management, will boost or decrease the entire program to keep the level of the dialogue the same across content. So that's what that thing is. You turn it on, and it's supposed to work. A lot of things ignore it, and your ads are still louder than they should be. There it is.
Ken just wants some basic, decent sound for his living room. He's got a 65-inch B7 OLED display, and he's already has some Paradigm speakers and SVS PB-1000 sub. He doesn't have any place to put surround speakers, so he wants a 3.1 setup. He just wants to spend as little as possible on a receiver to power this whole setup and switch between his 5 HDMI sources. No NAD for you. One of which is an Oppo 203.
Well, if he wants to spend as little as possible anyway,
I'm just saying. No NAD. Which is an Oppo 203. He found the Denon S720W at, I should call this one no NAD, exclamation point, exclamation, and just get the haters in there.
There are going to be some YouTube comments if you do, because they're searching, like, anything to do with NAD. Wait a second. These guys don't like NAD? Let's burn them to the ground. I'm
doing it. It's done.
All right.
I'm doing it.
We're going to get more than one thumbs down now.
Let's go. Okay. He found the Denon S530BT at accessories for less for only $130. He would like to have decent room correction, but will a 530 be sufficient for his needs? What does a 530? I don't remember what that has. Does it have multi-Q?
The S530 has no room correction. It has a very it does come with a microphone, and it has a very basic auto setup that just does your distances and levels, but no EQ of any kind on that one.
So would it be sufficient? No.
Not if you want some decent room correction. No.
Yeah. Decent room correction costs a little bit of money a lot of times. So what you got, Rob?
So, if you want to spend as little as possible, I would point you to Yamaha's RX-V383. It's $177 from accessories for less, so it's more expensive, premium. But hopefully you wouldn't consider that breaking the bank. Now, do you consider the basic level of YPOW? That's Yamaha's room correction, but the basic level, of course, this is their entry-level receiver from this model year. Do you consider that decent room correction? To me, in the lowest of the price ranges like this, the under $200 AV receiver crowd, I think YPOW is the best option of what's available, because otherwise you're looking at Odyssey 2 EQ, which I think is next to useless, no EQ at all, like this S530, or the very basic level of AccuEQ from Onkyo.
Right.
That's what you're looking at as the alternatives. Given those alternatives, I will pick the basic version of YPOW. I think that's the best option out of those.
This really, to me, screams of a... I know he wants to spend as little money as possible.
Yes.
But this screams of a very inexpensive, used AV receiver that's like 3 years old that has multi-Q XT or something like that.
I guess.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I mean, obviously that's why he's looking at accessories for less, because they do have model years going back farther. But I mean, these are the least expensive that they offer. I mean, the reason for me that Yamaha, the 383, comes up is because on the video side, it passes through Dolby Vision, it passes through HDR10, it does all that stuff, and he's got an OLED and an Oppo 203. I assume he wants that capability. So to me, that's important, and this is about the lowest price. So the S530 does it as well. It's just it has no EQ whatsoever. So I'm like, $47 gets you some level of EQ. But you're probably going to be paying more unless, like you say, you just go outside of an online retailer to just the straight used market, Craigslist or whatever.
Well, I would actually go, before I purchased anything, I would go to like your Best Buys, anything you've got in town, and go look for open box specials.
Yep.
And because at least there you'll have some sort of return policy.
Right.
You have to see what it is beforehand.
Yeah, because you just buy off Craigslist, that's you're done if something's wrong, right? So.
Yeah. it'll have some sort of return policy that you can take advantage of. That's what I would do first, just in case you came across an open box, doesn't have a remote. You're going to get a Harmony anyways. But
again, because of wanting the Dolby Vision pass-through, you can't go too far back.
That's true.
So,
but who knows? Yeah. Who knows what you're going to come across? Yeah. So, yeah.
But that'd be my suggestion. Now, one little thing: the 383 only has 4 HDMI inputs, and he said he's got 5 devices.
Well, he's got that Oppo. He could plug something in the back of the Oppo.
It. The Oppo has an input of its own. So, could you snake one of your other devices through the Oppo, or the alternative is if your devices are physically close enough that this isn't a big hassle, you could send the video, like from your cable box, send the video via HDMI straight to your TV, and then use optical or coax to send just the audio to the Yamaha, because the audio on your cable box is never going to be more than Dolby Digital 5.1. You don't have to worry about lossless audio from your cable box or something. So if you have a source where the audio could be set separately, then that can just go to the CD input of the Yamaha, and you've saved an input for another video device. So that's an easy workaround.
All right, that's it. We answered all the questions. We're caught up. We
answered all the questions on our list. Now is the time, folks. I mean, it's the middle of summer. We had July 4th weekend when hardly anybody sent any questions, so we caught up on our backlog with Lee then. This would be...
you guys went on for like 2.5 hours. That's why we caught up.
We also did go about the half an hour of that was just talking about Lee's setup and hearing him say why he returned an OLED TV. So
why did he return an OLED TV? I didn't hear that.
Well, he was very nervous about the whole thing to begin with, and for him it was a significant amount of money, so if it wasn't going to be 100% satisfaction, he wanted to save the money. He was annoyed by some of the, just the usage, right? He wasn't a fan of WebOS. He didn't like the pointy remote and things like that. I think he would have got used to that over time, but he didn't like that. But then he didn't really have very much in the way of the vertical banding, so that was okay, but he did get one stuck pixel, and he was like, that's it, I'm out. Going back.
Will somebody buy that man a subwoofer, please? I'm going to tear out, I'm just going to physically break into his house. I'm going to go into the back of his speakers. I am going to take the wires that connect the speaker to the crossover drivers to the drivers on the bottom. I'm going to sever them.
Mm-hmm.
And then not tell him that I've done that, and then
where'd all my bass go? He'll be boosting up the bass on his Yamaha, and nothing will be happening.
Nothing will happen. All right, we want to thank our listeners of the week. We want to thank Andrew for going to www.avrant.com and clicking on the Buy Us a Cup of Coffee link. With that money that he gave us through that PayPal donation site, we will be paying for our hosting fees and probably whatever lawyers we will have to pay for the fact that I'm going to name this one No NAD.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Andrew. We're going to need that money. Got to protect ourselves.
And we're also going to thank our 61 patrons over at patreon.com.
Yeah, that's patreon.com/AVRant podcast if you'd like to sign up. And thanks so much to our 61 patrons.
And lastly, Chris, our Insteon Hub giveaway and also apparently our resident Windows and Xbox expert. Thank you, Chris, for being a great listener.
Yeah, thank you very much, Chris. We really do appreciate it. Congrats once again to Joshua for winning that Insteon Hub. And you know what? I just want to say a big, big thank you to all AVRant listeners. You're all our listeners of the week as far as I'm concerned, because we got to 600 episodes here. I don't think that's an insignificant achievement. I think that's pretty impressive.
So
and
unless you're doing them like once a day.
Well, that's just true. But we've got people who have stuck with us since day one. We know for a fact.
You're one of them.
I am one of them. That's right. I don't. You know what? I mean, I went back and heard you all the way from episode 0. There was an episode 0 before there was an episode 1. I went back, but I didn't find you until I think episode 3. You know, so even I wasn't there right from the very, very start on the very first day. I can't even claim that.
I forgive you, Rob. All right. For AVRant, I'm Tom Andrew.
And I'm Rob H. Now go out and listen to something.
Want your question answered? Send it to question@avrant.com. This is AVRant.
Now go out and listen to something.